just landed in Leadership and Enlightenment, a podcast where the guests are exceptional humans that have faced their fears to crest into their best selves, growing into a way they can help their communities, creating opportunities, and sharing their secrets and their tips that they learned along the way. Without further ado, here we are, my friends. Have a great time today and enjoy Leadership and Enlightenment.
Jim, dude, this is going to be fun, bro. I love
man.
these impromptus that we jump on like this, man. And what I didn't tell you before is like your name, Jim, is my family name. My dad's, my grandfather's. Yeah, my middle name's James.
Okay,
brothers.
that's awesome.
I know. I didn't want to spoil that until I got you on the podcast.
No, I like it, man. That's great. That's awesome.
Where did you grow up, bro?
Central Florida. I'm in Orlando. I've lived here my whole life. Kissimmee, which is basically Walt Disney World. I've been
I
here
know that.
before they were here. I'm now in Winter Garden, which is really West Orlando, but it's the cool place to be in Central Florida. Very pedestrian.
Yeah.
Everybody comes here and hangs out on the weekends. There's always something going on. But yeah, I'm a
You guys
native
got a
right
big
here.
car show that you got a big car show that comes there every year too, right?
We have a lot of stuff. I mean, especially, Orange County Convention Center, Orlando is like number one for tourism conventions. Vegas will be number two. So there's always, especially if they're bigger shows like that, you got to have space to do it. Not every state has something like that, but yeah, big car show down here.
What was like growing up in high school out that way?
It's awesome. I loved it. A lot of my friends are ranchers, Cowboys. My football team was Cowboys with a K because we live in Kissimmee.
Okay. Right on.
But the oldest rivalry in the state of Florida is Kissimmee versus St. Cloud. So I know a lot of people think of St. Cloud, Minnesota, but they're St. Cloud, Florida. And the Bulldogs and the Cowboys have a rivalry here. But across the pond is, there's always people that are herding cows. And a lot of my friends, true Cowboys, back in the day, they would bring their horse ride right into downtown and put it on a hitching post. They don't have any hitching posts anymore down there, but a lot of citrus down here, a lot of cattle. So a lot of people probably think it's big and huge and crazy and plastic because of Disney. But before that, it was just a lot of farm and cattle land. So
you and I have a lot in common. I grew up in Las Vegas, which is like the land of no culture that has, this growth element that I was able to establish as well. What era did you grow up in that high school idea?
Well, it literally in, what do you mean in
like
Kissimmee?
In the 80s, 90s? I mean,
I grew up, well, I'm a little bit older than what most people think, but yeah, I grew up, I went to high school in the 80s. So 80s, college, late 80s, early 90s, and, just been hoofing it ever since in corporate America after that. Not the last 15 years, but
I joke that we grew up in Vegas. It was like a John Hughes movie. It was like 16 Candles every day in high school. Like everybody kind of bonded around that element.
Yeah.
I now live about an hour south of Reno with a bunch of cowboys and farmers. And so like I get that culture understanding that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And at first they didn't get me and I didn't get them. It was literally Green Acres. I'm the dude coming in from New York every week.
See, you say Green Acres. There's a lot of people that don't even know what that is.
No, I know. They don't get it, but you do because of the era.
Yeah.
I blew my well up a couple times, in the winters. And you've got to learn, and I have some amazing friends out here that were able to help me learn these things.
Yeah.
And I have an appreciation. My neighbor actually he just processed 2 of his cows.
Wow.
And it's part of the deal. I bought into it last time. My wife and I did. We got freezers. Why not? We started seeing like this truth that isn't in a grocery store and how it all kind of, evolves into the nature of love. And he loves his animals and they love him and they leave him a gift when, and how long would you want to be on this earth if you were a cow anyways? Like 2 years? Like, it seems like it's going to get kind of boring after a while.
Yeah. You're just sitting around and just chewing grass. That's it. Making methane, I guess. That's it.
There you go, dude. So what launched you out of high school, man? Where'd you end up?
So when I left high school, I actually tried to play high school football, but I'm a pretty short dude and one of the shortest guys in high school. When you put the football pads on and they're almost over your head, for those that are watching the podcast, they can see the hair going up, but these pads would go almost over my head. So it was pretty quick. I still have my wheels. I can run pretty quick. But boy, when you get bowled over by somebody, one of the very first days that we put on those pads, our coach lined us up. And there's a name for it, and I forgot what it is. But you have to run 20 yards at the other person. Yeah. And the other person has to just sit there and take it. They want you to get used to feeling what it feels like when you get hit.
Yeah.
And man, it knocked the air out of me every single time. So all the way through freshman high school football, I was really kickoff and punt return, and I could run pretty quick. But every time I got tackled, man, it hurt bad. So I
Dude.
quit that and decided to find something that I could do. And I sang. I was in chorus, sort of like Glee, the
Wow.
TV show. That was my
Yeah,
life.
yeah, yeah.
A lot of
Cool.
vocal, choral, church, opera, but back in the day, it was just chorus stuff. But enough that I went to college on that. So when I left high school, I have a music
Sweet.
degree. So I spent 2 years doing
Awesome.
that. And I found out while I was at university to actually make a living doing that, you actually had to be good. So I changed careers. I got out of that. I wasn't great, man.
You sound like me so much, but not that way.
No, well, I mean, you know what they say, Dean, those that can't do teach. So I got out of that, but I became a middle school teacher, did that for 6
Awesome,
years.
dude. Bless
Absolutely
you on
loved that
that.
as well. But I took a summer job working at a Hard Rock food and beverage. I'd had some background at Olive Garden, a restaurant concept called
Sure.
Rack. A lot of people won't know what that is, but I just took a summer job. Back then, my hair did not go up. It went down. I had a mullet about 2.5 feet that I could almost sit on. And, they let me keep that hair and say and do whatever I wanted to. I was ensconced in rock and roll. I was around a bunch of pretty interesting characters, some of the most,
Yeah.
I would say, unique humans I'd ever seen on the planet. And I wound up staying there for 21 years and running training and development and opened up Hard Rock
Cool.
cafes and hotels and casinos around the planet.
Jeez,
So
bro.
yeah, it was fun. Like I had a nice trajectory, nice career path, all the way up to doing what I do now. But high
I
school,
wanna
I talk to a lot of people and they can't stand their high school. I had an awesome time. I
I did
still
too.
hang out with some of my best friends, but I'm also still here in Central Florida in the area that I grew up. So it
Yeah.
worked
That's
out
all
for
right,
me.
that's great. I mean, dude, before I dig in a little bit, I wanna reflect back. You and I have so many parallels you don't even understand. I mean, those things
Is
are
it
incredible.
hair? Are we going to talk hair
No,
care
well,
products?
maybe that too. I don't have any of that anymore. But
That's
yeah,
my
dude,
next
back in
hairstyle. That's what I'm doing next.
I'm telling you, back in the day, I used to at least you look like Echo and the Bunnymen. Had it all fanned up, back in those
Okay.
days. Yeah, yeah, Flock of Seagulls.
Yeah.
I graduated in '88. Had no idea where I was going with my life. I just knew that, I loved life and it was fun. And I went off to Reno and put myself through college, same kind of idea. And I ended up in food and beverage as well. I don't know how I ended up in food and beverage, but
Well, a
it
lot of
wasn't
people
my
do.
thought. Yeah, well, I think it's the money. It was really easy
Yep.
to work in at the time. I got to know people. I think you learn these skill sets that you start to develop from. And this is the cool part of the conversations because I like to look back and say to you, like, hey, look at all the skill sets you have now
Yeah.
through this journey that you went through without even knowing you were looking for these skill sets. And
Right.
and here you are, right? Which we haven't even gotten to the exciting part of what you're doing
Right.
now. But think about that reality of that something's guiding you through this process. Did you ever get like that? Like when I was in college, there was a time right before I got my first job in my first semester of freshman year, I was running out of money. I was going to have to go home. And I went into this hotel and I said, hey, I need a job. And they're like, I'm like, I'm going to have to go home and I want to go to college. And they're like, tomorrow, you start tomorrow. This is back in the day when you actually could get a job in a day. And they're like,
Yeah.
you're going to be a busboy. And I'm like, that's great. I don't know what a busboy is, but I'll take it. And, my life blossoms out of this world in a way that at that moment, it's something said to me like, I got you, man. We're going to be all right. Just get out there and have some fun with this thing. It's going to be fine. Did you ever get that feeling when you were doing what you did?
I would tend to say I had a pretty charmed life. I wasn't ever knowing what the ultimate pot of gold was going to be at the rainbow, but I always had the rainbow in mind. I always had this arch, I don't know, this weird story arc in my head, Dean, that I thought things are going to be great for me. I have a faith-based background, and so I would always just think very positively. I'm an opportunistic type of guy anyway, and I'd look around just to see if there was an opportunity, but I'm a long-termer. I stuck it out with whatever job, whatever certificate I was going for, whatever training, whatever degree when I was in college. Like I pretty much stuck through that because I knew that would always have some sort of a payoff. So you
Yeah.
know, I don't sometimes I wind up being on some shows where people wanna talk about the crazy thing that happened to you that was a massive inflection point in your life, and mine was more of a hockey stick trajectory that constantly went up. Even doing what I'm doing now, and like you said,
Yeah.
we haven't even gotten to that part. I feel
Yeah.
like everything was the perfect right stepping stone the way it was
Sure.
supposed to be. So, I've just had a fantastic
That's cool.
ride personally and professionally.
Yeah.
We all go through struggles. I have as many issues and skeletons as the next guy, but in general, not so much when it comes to my career. Like that part has been really, really great for
I
me.
love that. That's cool, man. I find find that same trajectory in mine until it hit a certain spot. Well, I won't get into that right now. But I've also interviewed individuals that were athletes or artist type, and they knew, like, at a very young age, they felt this ping, and they're like, "That's where I'm going." And they
Yeah.
never looked outside of that. They just kept on that line, and that creates different outcomes in their lives of challenges that they've been dealing with at a later stage of life because they were so clear. And then when they grew up, they got a little older and matured into it. They had to figure out what it meant to them. What they were. A lot of them went back and coached. A lot of them used it in different ways. But
Yeah.
sometimes it was a crutch, or they got stuck in it. Where, like, you and I, we were just like literally like swimming through life and letting it
Yeah.
hit us. And like you, man, I stuck it out 7, 8 years with every hotel I worked with in Vegas. I just
Wow.
those years we built, we were coming out of our grandparents' age where they're like, build, a reputation with your company and the loyalty. And later we had to learn a little lesson, out of that when we came out of it. Where did it take you from Hard Rock to next?
Well, when I left, I was at Hard Rock for so long there and I loved it. And if I could do what I'm doing now and still be with them, I'd like to say I probably would. But, I'd gotten to a point where after 21 years, I was loving it. I was a senior director in charge of training and development. And again, those were every platform they had: live music, casino, hotel, restaurant. But I had, I think, 8 people at that time working for me, and I would say at least half of them were promotable, but they were all at a manager level, and I wanted to make them directors or ultimately in charge of the department. So we were very bottom heavy. I was probably in the way, just because I'd been there so long. A lot of the things that we had put into place and I'd won awards for: video, e-learning, instructor-led, corporate universities, management training programs. Like, we were recognized not just in restaurants, but among all industries. And so, it was fun, but I really felt like I had done everything that I possibly could. I'd gotten it to a really great place. To be honest with you, Dean, I was making some of the biggest bonuses I'd ever seen in my life. It was just gravy train, but for me, it wasn't enough. I wanted to impact and influence more people. I wanted to go vertical. I wanted to be outside of just restaurants. And so
Yeah.
I started with this performance art of me. Now, again, I'm going back because I really pull all the levers of where I started. I started with music and performing on stage and being a director and doing those things, to being a middle school teacher and educating people and teaching, but standing in front of a class and doing that, and then being ensconced in a rock and roll music restaurant environment. So I feel like hospitality, education, music, I use all of those and package it up. And I started speaking on the side while I was at Hard Rock. The fun thing for me is I was doing it for free. Like, I was charging clients because I had a real job. I was head of training. I didn't want anybody to ever, I want to be beyond reproach is what I would rather say. I
Sure.
didn't want people to come to me and go, he's loving his side hustle more than he is his day-to-day job. But I was charging them. I just gave Hard Rock all the money. So now I'm funding stuff. That's a lot of fun. You're making money. And when I finally was getting ready to leave, I had about a year in my head, like, okay, I've got an exit strategy, but I'm doing like 10, 11, 12 of these a year, one a month. I'm making money and I'm not even trying. It's, you do one, you get 2 or 3 spinoff from it. And so I really said, I think I can make a career at this. I didn't even know it was a thing until you started to get out there. There's nobody that goes to school to be a professional speaker. Not
Right.
a single. I know 800 professional
Wow.
speakers. We get together every year at a conference. A lot of egos involved in that event, but it's fun as I'll get out. Some of my best friends are there. Not a single one that started off as a speaker. They were doing something else and it just sort of became a natural talent for them, or maybe their subject matter was so hot and heavy and they had to prop this guy or girl up in front of everybody. So for me, I'm sitting here at Hard Rock going, I've got these skills, but really the teaching, being in front of people, getting a chance to influence them, whether personally or professionally, to make their business better, to make them personally better, was a massive driving force for me. So I just threw myself out there and then I started speaking in front of insurance agents and bankers and auto mechanics and funeral directors and clowns and whatever.
Wow.
You name it, everybody has a conference. There's an association for everything, and they love bringing people from the outside. There's an entire career for that. So I really started to think through that last year. I think I could go and do this. It'll give my team an opportunity, someone to get promoted and take over my role. Somebody else can run with it. I felt like I left it in a good place. I wanted to write a book. And if you're working for a company, depending on what the book is about, it could become I forget what it is, the rights, a work for hire.
An NDA issue, yeah.
And I don't want them to own the book or have issues or edit it or whatever. So I knew I would eventually was going to have to leave, but I jumped off the deep end about 15 years, and I've been a professional keynote speaker now for the last decade and a half. And I wish I would have done it sooner. I mean, it worked out the way it was supposed to, as we were just talking about.
Of course it did.
It's a fun gig, and I've never looked back, and I'll probably do this the rest of my life. But even in speaking in front of other people, massively scared to death to do that from high school, probably my second year in college. Other than performing, singing, doing solos, again, I could do that.
You're okay with that part?
I was okay with that. I don't know why. I think maybe the performance art when you're in a local play, I did a lot of community theater.
Let's slow down on this one. Hold on a second. Let's slow down on this one because this is the part where I really am interested. Like when you're in a performance art scenario, can you separate yourself from the experience and then you become the experiencer? I think that's the difference. That's what I learned in public speaking was literally separating myself from the audience and becoming an experiencer in it. And then for some reason, everything would just find its place.
Yeah. I see people that can do that more than they can public speaking. I mean, speaking in front of other people is the number one fear of all humans on the planet, more than fear of heights and insects and bugs and whatever, fear of death. All of that, number one is public speaking. People will shake, they'll freak out, they'll start sweating, heart palpitations. I was probably not as bad, but I was like that in high school as well. And I did stand up. I had a debate stuff in college, but that fear factor, that's part of what that TV show and that mindset is. If you lean into it, you're going to get better. And so for me, when you start to perform, when you're doing community theater, when you're teaching in front of kids, even starting as a substitute teacher, you start getting up there, you get your sea legs. When now you're running training and development and you're teaching hundreds of people in a new location, like again, stepping stone, but you just get better because you're doing it all the time. And so now I can't think of doing anything else. I crave thousands of people in front of me every day. Like that's my jam. But everybody goes through that fear. And maybe to your question, I think with, let's take community theater. It's just your buddies and you're hanging out.
Right.
Half the time I'm goofing off backstage and we're laughing about whatever it is. And it's just something to do on the weekends and you do it for about 5-6 weeks. Like it's different to have that sort of mentality and you put on a good show. I think for people that then go and do this and they're either getting paid for it or it's professional, you don't screw around like that. Like now I think you do have to really focus on every single thing, whether it's voice inflections and the tandem and even being quiet in between sentences, like the way you look, all of that matters. So the reason people are so awesome at that level is because they probably have had all this other work that they've gone through. They've gone through the gauntlet. So I would never say that I got to that level when it comes to community theater and acting, but I do have a little bit of performance art. I am going to be louder, faster, aggressive, charismatic when I'm on stage more than this. And yet I think people would say that I'm very authentic. I'm the same that you're going to get up there that you will hear. I just have to be a whole lot mobile and crazier when I'm up on stage.
They can take. What's your style around that?
Yeah, I think the great speakers out there have to do that. Everybody has a what's in it for me type of mindset when they're watching somebody. I think you used to could have separate people into motivational speakers and then you've got these technical educational speakers. I don't think you can just be great at delivery and or the content. I think you got to be a monster. You got to slake both of them. So again, the performance art is just, I'm tapping into stuff that I've used in the background, but I'm an educator at heart, teacher, trainer. I want to teach. So this is very different from a lot of speakers. I have a lot that don't want to have any slides. Maybe they have one or two big images behind them. They will storytell around all of that. They're not constrained by technology or time. If somebody said you have 10 minutes and that's it, and there's no tech, they can go up there and wing it. I'm less of a wing type person. I'm more of, I know the story arc between now and an hour from now. And I know in my mind, you're going to get 8 takeaways for me. Dude, I'm going to spend about 5 minutes of a setup, maybe a story. I might be using PowerPoint. I might be using music. I might be telling whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then there's a reveal, there's a takeaway. And I
Yeah.
actually have people writing down the takeaway, which helps in their retention level. So I'm pulling a lot of the old school, memorization type skills because I want people to push back from the table and go, that was an awesome use of my
Yeah.
time. I'm about
Yeah.
meatiness, stickiness. I want it to resonate. But yeah, we're going to tell some stories. We're going to have some yucks along the way. I'm
Yep.
going to be playing different music. So I will, if I had a half day workshop, then I'm coming with everything: flip chart, video, there's storytelling. They're going to have group
Interaction.
discussions, teach out
Yeah.
all of that stuff. But if somebody says you got 15 minutes to go up there and do your thing, then, it's less and you go and do the stuff. But I think the one thing that might be a little bit different in what you were saying earlier, I do crave the big audiences. When you're out there and it's and the lights and thousands of people going crazy, I do love that. But I also do 4 people around a card table in the back of a
Right.
funeral home, and
Right.
I'm going to give them the same level of energy, the
Sure.
same delivery, because I
Wow.
owe it to them. Somebody's paying me to come in there to do
Wow.
something
There's the lesson right there.
exciting. So
That's the
I
lesson.
think regardless of where you're going to go with the audience, when you show up and you're so completely present, I think you get credit for that. And I play the long game. These are the ones that will come back to the well,
Sure enough.
spend more money, talk about you positively.
Yeah.
You want that to happen with the big ones, but I'll do 2 or 3 small ones
And
just
let
as
the work
well, and I'm
happen.
happy
And
with
let the
that.
and let the universe do their job, right?
That's
I mean,
right.
put the 20
Exactly.
put the 20% and let the 80% happen. I mean, you
100%.
used a term right now that I'm going to take back in my mind when I do my presentation next week: the store yard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all I remember is this one motivational speaker I had once. What I left with was this one analogy that stuck with me forever. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. Leave that one thing.
Yeah.
And he was
That's
like,
more important.
why do the buffaloes run through a rainstorm when every other animal waits for it to be over?
Yeah, you get
And
to
we're
it
all
quicker.
like,
Yeah.
because the grass is greener from the fresh rain on the other side, and they get there before all the other animals. And his
Yeah.
point was, be the buffalo. And I'm like, bro, I could do that. That makes
Yeah.
sense. And I went back to work, and I was a labor type manager dude. And I put that in place for 6 months.
Yeah.
I was like, run at that fear, Dino. Take an
Yeah.
effort. Be that buffalo. And you're not faded eventually, but that's the gift, right? Isn't
Yeah.
that really the gift in the end? That you
It
can,
is.
somebody's
It
running
is.
around with that in their heart.
Well, I think, and you bring up 2 things. I mean, one is, even though that guy was considered as a motivational speaker, you still got the one thing out of it. And I think there are people and there are companies, that's what they want. They need people to get ginned up. They need the inspiration, the motivation, and maybe there wasn't as much of detailed, technical, practical, tactical stuff, but all you need is the one thing for people to get inspired, and that was enough. So that was good. I also think, for people that get into this business that want to be a speaker, it's one of the first things, I have people that come to me all the time. They go, I want to do what you do. And I go, what do you have to say? Do you have content? Like what's your background? I mean, people could jump right in and they do, but a lot
Yeah.
of them will struggle and fail because they haven't thought through. Like what you're doing is you've got a lot of ideas. You're putting things in place before you start running out there and doing it. Again, I can point back and go, the reason I am where I am is because I had this 3-decade long path that was the right stepping stones to go to each. I didn't just decide because I was an executive at one
And you
company,
needed
I'm
a
gonna
new
leave and
job.
do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And I have a lot of friends that they're not keynoters. We call them free noters. So they speak for free because they don't care about
Yeah.
making money. They want you to come back to the back of the room to buy the consulting and the videos and all
Right.
the other stuff. They'll
Yeah.
open up the kimono and go, these are all the things that I have. But
Yeah.
speaking, they just do it for free because that's not what their end game is. They don't care whether you get little things or inspired or motivated. What they need is people to go and play the long game with them to be ensconced in their business. And so, there are
Wisdom.
some good friends of mine that do a fantastic job. They also have podcasts to teach people. And I
Yeah.
actually have a series as well for my old podcast to show people how to make money, how to make it a career, how to actually influence other people, how to sponsor the thing. Like I'll help people with their speaking, but at the end of the day, you got to have a little bit of that talent. But even that, you've got to go and practice the thing. That skill set
Wow.
can be developed.
Dude, I see us doing a once a quarter.
Yeah.
Like going back through this, like this is a master class that we're
Let's
giving
do
right
it.
now. Or
What
that
will
you're
we talk
giving and
about
I'm
on the
listening
next one?
to. I don't know, man. I mean, probably in the same subject line, getting down to why you're such an expert at what you do, how people can learn around that.
And you, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that. It's just, I'm so grateful of
Yeah.
how the universe answers questions. I think it is the coolest part of my day. Years ago, I started with this process. I was going to put my 10,000 hours in and learn about myself and realize like, hey, do the work, dude.
Exactly. And I try not to be, I try not to throw generations under the bus. I mean, everybody has
Yeah.
their own style, but come on, Gen Xers, we were super hard workers, right? I mean, let's be honest. And
Yeah.
it is something we have to push down because I think the stuff that we got either from our parents or from school, I think today's generations, they just don't get the same things that we do. And I have a friend of mine who runs a frozen dessert concept, and she goes, man, it's tough because they're not taught, the employees that she has, how to make eye contact or count change or
Oh,
use a
wow.
mop or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
They know the technology and they're better obviously at us than we were if it even existed, but
At using those tools. Yeah.
and using the tools, and we can learn a lot from them and learn about social
Yeah.
media and whatever, but the fundamentals of, I think, life skills about working super hard, which does pay off in the end. And one of the things that sounded like that's what you were saying. I
Hmm.
truly believe in becoming a lifelong student. I've always been like that. I think if you're constantly open to learning and seeing things differently and being of service to anyone who ever asks, like if anybody asks me for anything, I just jump right in,
Yeah.
or if I feel like somebody needs some help, I will do my level best to do that. But I think probably the greatest thing that's always resonated with me is this mindset that everybody can make a difference in some way, shape, or form if they apply themselves. And I use this phrase: a single person with a great idea can start a revolution. And
Yeah.
that's how countries are overthrown. That's how philanthropic movements are started.
Hmm.
That's how people can change the culture inside of an
Yeah.
organization. So I think this hard work, if you stick to it, and I'm not just talking about, I think, chronologically, although it sounds like you and I have worked for some businesses for a long period of time, I think that helps. Certainly not like my dad or my grandfather who stayed at one
Yeah.
company and they got
Yeah.
pensions. That doesn't exist anymore. I get that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, whatever it is, work hard, look around, be a
Yeah.
student,
Yeah.
invite yourself to the party, put your name out there,
Yeah.
get into a leadership position where you can make a difference and
Yeah.
things will happen for you. And at some point,
Yeah.
the entrepreneur inside of you will become an entrepreneur. You'll want to
Hmm.
have your own business and
Yep.
not have a boss and make a lot of money. And that's
Yeah.
great. But just jumping right out of school to do that, it's highly unlikely and you're going to struggle and you're going to get frustrated. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Well,
just said a lot of stuff in there, but those are the things that
no,
resonate with
you're
me.
right. You're right, brother. That's what we both saw in our corporate employment. You work for Hard Rock. I work for MGM Resorts in Las Vegas. So to me,
Right.
it looked like the military. I'm like,
Yeah.
if I work harder than the other person, I'm going to
Yeah.
get a promotion. And it worked the first time. And I'm like, wow, that worked. And then I did it again and it worked again. And I'm like, wow, that worked. And then I tried to do it on the third one and it didn't work. And I went, uh-oh, what happened? And I realized like my natural abilities had been superseded. And
Mm.
I had to learn. I had to go back to school. I had to find there was accreditations that I got at the time.
Mm.
And I became, proficient in teaching like you to learn how to move from a manager to a leader and taking that ownership that this is an environment for me that I can, it's like it's a master class. It's a college. All these people in front of me are literally the example of life that I'm trying to work through. And back then I used to see it through my eyes. The growth was now I can see it through their eyes back at me. I realize what they want to see and what they're trying to see. And I can help them now kind of reassemble that lens because
I like that.
if I knew what we're talking about now back then in the tire culture time when we
Yeah.
literally put ourselves in the hospital because that was the best strategy. I have friends that like to cry about it. I'm like, stop crying. We didn't know any other difference back
Yeah.
then. That was how we
Just
did it. What are you going to do? You go run and you do until you fall down and you got to look at yourself and go, all right, maybe I'm not going to kill myself doing this thing for everybody else.
Yeah.
And you grow out of it into this other place. But what does that give you? It gives you those building blocks. It gives you that way of staying, centered in your day. And you'll never feel better another day than you start and you keep going. Like there's no goal. What
Yeah.
you learn is it's the path of the experience that you enjoy the most as the experiencer.
Totally.
How do we separate ourselves from the experience and be the experiencer? That's it. You're in that motion right now. There's no place to get to. And if you can't figure out in your day to day how to enjoy it, when are you going to find that place? How much
That's it.
money do you need to make? You're never going to get there. You have to learn how to scale, how to learn, and how to grow in incremental ways that you can actually allow it in.
Yeah, no doubt. You had said something earlier about, I do think it's good to network, and every once in a while, if there's something that you don't know, it's okay to ask. But I've also learned that part of my success has been, I wouldn't say relying on others because, you can't control outcomes. You can only control behaviors, and I can't control other people's behaviors. So whether you're in business with or you had people working for you, that's where leadership comes in. You hope that you've inspired and motivated them, but taught them and rewarded them and recognized and communicated and grew them and developed them and all those things so that they're doing things on your behalf. But now on my own for the last 15 years and really just being a free agent out here speaking on my own, I know that nobody can sell me better than me. So I sort of go, okay, I at least get my foot in the door a lot of
Sure.
time. I still will ask for help. I still network. I still have great mentors, personal and professional, that help me in a lot of ways. But at the end of the day, I've now gotten to the point at this age that it's not going to get done unless I really put my nose to the grindstone. So,
Yep.
I'm not reliant on anybody else. I'm a self-reliant type of person, but I still think I can learn anything. I know that
Well, yeah.
I know that you're smarter than I am at something. It's my job to figure out what it is so I can throw that in my
I love
quiver
that.
so I can
Yeah.
just hang with us when we're in a conversation. I'm not like a
Yeah.
dummy out in
Yeah.
left field. I'm constantly all these books that are on this shelf back here. There's not a single fiction book out there. It's all
Yeah.
boring business nonfiction, but that's how I grew my head. That's how I grew my skill set. I either did
Yeah.
it or read up on it so that I could just
Yeah.
hang in the conversation. That was always the goal. And
Yeah.
again, I think there's some learnings out there. There are people listening right now on the show. They listen to you because they constantly are looking for the nugget, the thing that'll help them get
Mhm.
better.
Yep.
I just say become a student of life and it'll
Yeah.
come to you.
Was really sharing through these analogies, these life stories, these things. I really, what I see is you and I, we learn how to teach ourselves, and that's a big difference in the world, from learning from somebody else to learning how to teach yourself, to go find the information that you're looking for, rather than having somebody say, hey, maybe you want to do this, instead of like, hey, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And for anybody on the spectrum, just so you know, I learned how to listen to books. It
Mm.
takes time. You have to train your brain that you're not going to get distracted. Go to the gym, start a book, and when you phase off, rewind it, go back to the spot you last remember, and do that enough where your brain will finally say, are we going to do this? And you're going to be like, yeah, we're going to do this. I might listen to that same book 3 times to get really down to that place, like you said, where you're finding that nugget and you're walking away from it.
Yeah.
But I think today's theme of the podcast is learning how to be a self-learner and
Yeah.
getting to this place that we are.
I like it.
Dude, I'm
like
really
it, man.
proud to meet you, bro. This is fun. I can't
It
wait
is.
to do this again in a quarter.
What number show are you at right now?
Yeah, I think you're like number 30-ish.
Okay, this is great, man. I
Yeah.
was just sharing with you before we started. I had 5 years, and we had just gotten to about 200 podcasts, which was about the
Awesome.
max. Which, if you're at 30, you're already well beyond most podcasts. When we started, there were only about 250,000. There were 250,000 or so unique shows. Now there's over 5 million unique shows. So it's hard to really get a podcast going. And most podcasts, I've found this statistic shocking, only make it around the 7th episode before they peter out. That's it. The fact that you're at 30 and you have a plan and you have other people that are wanting to be on the show and you don't have a lack of finding people to put on it, bless you,
Yeah.
man. It's awesome.
Thanks, brother. Thank
Congratulations.
you.
Great team.
Yeah. It's really for, you know what, man? I want to appreciate like you, the
Yeah.
dude that was out there for 30 years, like me, 30 years in the company. And like, look at where we're at. And
Yeah.
if I was 25 listening to this podcast, I would be super excited.
I hope so. Yeah. Well, it's not going to happen by accident. No one's going to hand it to you. It is a ton of work. That's right. Well, I appreciate you and your work, man. I'm so grateful that you invited me on the show. And like you said, I don't know where we're going to go next time. We can talk about pretty much anything. Oh,
Tell everybody where they can find you, dude. They're going to fall in love with you after hearing you on this podcast.
oh, man, I appreciate it. Yeah, all roads lead to my website. You can pretty much find everything there. It's Night Speaker. So my last name is KNIGHT, nightspeaker.com. You can see all my books, and there's video of me, and I put out content every day on all the social media platforms. So yeah, I appreciate it, brother. Just thanks for the invite, just having a conversation. This
Yeah,
was
dude.
awesome.
It
I
was.
appreciate
It
it.
was. All right, good. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Rock on. Rock on, guys.
Rock on.
Well, there we go. Another amazing example of the universe working in its magnificent way today. Appreciate you showing up. and look forward to seeing you again at Leadership and Enlightenment.